Someone's recording.
Jay, are you recording this?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yes.
Cool. All right, before I begin, can I just pray very short because I'm freaking nervous right now?
Sure.
All right. Dear Lord, thank you for us. Thank you for allowing this time to talk about what is happening in this world and also discuss how we will live in this world. Fill everyone attending this meeting with the Holy Spirit to open so our spiritual eye will be open and see what you want us to see. Drive away the power of Satan and protect our heart, tongue, and mind with the army of angels. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen. All right. So let's begin with a quick recap from the previous lecture. So the hyperconnectivity means the state of being connected to the digital world with our physical body. For example, like it's just beyond of just having a smartphone. For example, we can turn off smartphone or we can put away our smart devices or any devices that's connected to the internet. But for example, smartwatch or any kind of Fitbit, those kind of things are constantly connected to the digital world, sending the data about our physical changes or any other physical, basically sending the data constantly 24 hours without rest. That's what hyperconnectivity means. And from that perspective, robotics and IoT are important because, first of all, their physical means to extend our physical ability using the constant interaction between the digital and physical world. So we can say that robots are becoming as an extension of our physical body. And if we compare robots as muscles and bones, then AI would be, of course, like neural system or the brain to assist the operation of our extended limbs. So as extension of physical body, like just think about the Iron Man on the picture. You have drastically extended domain of the physical abilities. Also, you have new viewpoints, new fields of action that were not traditionally available. Like you can send out your drones to watch over things that you could never see before, or send out your robotic limbs, or use your robotic stuff to scratch out the data that were not available by our physical ability. However, well, it's kind of pro and con. Decreases the necessity of direct human contacts. It could be okay for times like this, but also it could make other problems as well. And the most important thing is that our self in the digital world becomes as important as our self in the physical world. What does that mean? Like, I'll just hit it later. However, AI and robots are like the part of our self, but also it operates as another self or another entity. Like again, think about the Iron Man in comparison. For example, if you guys have seen the movie, then you know that Tony Stark is not controlling the full armor. He's making the major decisions, but the maintenance or the like observation of the status are done by his AI programs that watch over the stuff, right? So in that means like those AI, like Jarvis and Friday AIs are part of the Tony Stark, but also the separate thing. However, what unique about that kind of situation is that we have that instinct as a human to feel emotional toward things that seem like autonomous or human-like. So that makes us to have emotional interaction with machines and devices. Not just like seeing machines as just some means to like make things work or do our jobs done. But for example, think about your emotional connection with your first cars or robotic pets or any other things. And those things become just deeper than the traditional machines because robots are becoming and other devices are becoming more autonomous and more human-like. So eventually, our emotion, especially our feelings, are being involved in that whole decision-making process, and its percentage becomes just bigger and bigger. We don't know what's going to happen after that. All right, so the key questions about the current robotics is that how much should we allow our machines to be autonomous, human-like, and emotional? And how much should we allow ourselves to be connected to those devices? So that, from that point of view of being like technology being both physical and emotional, goes the advancement of the AR, VR, and MR, the mixed reality technology. Because it's based on the reality we live in, but it also extends it through the variety of digital and physical means. So to bring out as an example, I've brought a short video.
I'm sorry. So what was the MR again?
Mixed reality.
Mixed reality. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you guys catching up?
Wait, sorry.
Cool.
How is that different from AR or VR?
Yeah, I have the definition in the next slide.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, just to like, I know it's morning and I'm nervous. You guys are quite tired or something. So just to like brush up some attention, let me put on a short video.
Yeah, let's do it.
Explain.
This is good.
Yeah, and it's quite emotional. So you guys should be ready. I'm sorry, it's in Korean. Issy, would you be okay with it?
Go ahead.
Or is there like
Right.
subtitles?
It's like 1 minute. Like there's no much more. So it's about a mother who lost her child in disease.
그래도 나연이를 만날 수 있으니까
So
어떻게라도 한번 보고 싶었어.
준비된 것 같으세요?
네.
I really thought I was okay. I really thought I was just fine.
엄마 나연이 보고 싶었어.
This time
엄마도 나 보고
there
싶었어.
was nothing to take about the street.
우리 나연이
Take you off my
나연아.
this time. I keep saying over and over and over and over.
right. Yeah. None of us are crying, right? It's okay to continue? Cool. But I guess you guys are understanding what I want to talk about when it comes to being emotional and physical technology. So let's begin with a quick definition. So virtual reality is replacing the whole environment, whole physical environment with the digital environment. So you're immersed in that environment. So you're basically living in a different, well, I wouldn't say world, it's more of a realm for now, just another domain, another country. Augmented reality is when you bring the virtual objects to the real world. So you can interact the real world through the virtual objects, but they're just assisting what you're doing in the real world. Mixed reality is when both are combined. So basically what you do in the virtual world affects the real world and vice versa. So how should I put an example?
Is like AR, then that's like Pokemon Go, right? Sorry, like
Yeah, Pokemon Go is in AR. Mixed reality would be, well, there's so few examples. There's practically no practical examples of mixed reality in the world, but they're pretty well presented in the movies. Oh, again, Iron Man, when you're using those virtual laboratories to make the real machines, and the real machines affect your AI program in the computer simultaneously as you make the changes.
Sorry,
again,
mixed reality.
Yeah.
Will it be like a hologram, something like that?
Yeah, but if it's just a hologram that kind of shows what you have in computer, that's AR. Like you can tweak the hologram right on your desk, and if the changes apply to your programs as well as to the physical means that is connected to the program, that's mixed reality.
So to kind of give an example, would it be something like a doctor who is performing surgery would be like, I think I've seen it before where there's a doctor like with some sort of gear, and then he's operating surgery from like a different country, but in that same way he's using this he's doing surgery but he's not physically there, but somebody help me out please. Something like, am I getting close? Is it like that?
Yeah,
sort of,
it is getting closer. So using
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that is pretty close. So you're using virtual items to affect the real world, and at the same time, the real world is affecting the virtual items at the same simultaneously. If that bidirectional communication goes on, that's the mixed reality. So when you immerse into the virtual world, that's virtual reality. When the digital things appear in our world, that's augmented reality. And when the communication goes bidirectionally, that's the mixed reality. Everyone's clear?
So like, I guess to further expand upon it, let's just say someone created a video game where the controller in itself has sensors on it and you can manipulate it, and it's visible and changeable within that virtual world when you have those goggles on. That would be more closer to like mixed reality. I think AR, I can give you a specific example for one of our clients. They put these glasses over their eyes with a camera on it, and they're an aircraft manufacturer. And so they're able to use these goggles to line up, like they're able to see a line of where they need to put in, like align the chairs so that they can put in the screws effectively versus using like rulers and tools. Another way is like they can see where some of the stickers inside of these aircraft need to go. And the goggles show that augmentedly, and they're able to place the stickers in the correct spots. And then VR is more of just like gaming. If you were to think of any VR games, that could be like a good example.
There aren't much of famous VR games right now, isn't it?
No, they came out with a new Half-Life.
Oh yeah, that's cool. That was cool. Yeah, also Skyrim VR. That's also small.
Yeah, so if that Half-Life game, I mean, you guys can go look it up afterwards. But if that Half-Life game actually had physical items that you could use to manipulate that world, that would be like mixed reality.
Yeah, and if that's the changes that you have made in the virtual world is applied to the real world at the same time, that's mixed reality. But if the change goes only one direction, that's either VR or AR. Cool. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So anyways, you're having a completely another realm to live and interact. What's good about that is that first of all, well, real action, but less consequences. What that means. All of the advancements, all of the studies we do are based on the principle of the trial and error, right? But there are limitations to that strategy because there are things that we cannot try, or the things that we're bound to follow some ethical or some practical limitations. They're afraid to have like basically the risk that comes from the consequences. But if you can conduct a study in an environment that is completely virtual but completely follows the laws of the real world, then you have a completely safe laboratory that you can practice as much as you want and fail as much as you want without zero or less consequences that will affect the real world. That's already a kind of big advantage. And secondly, just having a new realm itself means new possibilities. So think about the time when, well, we didn't live the time, but think about the time when the America was discovered by the Europeans. Like just having an extra land or having an extra place there can act resulted to have a new means of like business, new means of influx of various resources or various possibilities of like, think about what happened, like new country was made, new agricultural products were brought, even new diseases, and it brought to new medicine and so on. So basically having another, well, yeah, advantage. That's another advantage, just having somewhere to, well, try out. And in that way, having that understood, that really helped me to understand what the necessity of having AI and blockchain and other things, because first of all, we need that digital world to run very similar to the real world. If we don't have that, then there's no much advantage of having the virtual world. But as we cannot like involve in every process of operating that world, we need the assistance of the AI. We need the assistance of the AI to, wait, I had the memo about it. Sorry for that. Anyways, we need assistance for ourselves in the interaction between with the cyber and physical worlds, because we cannot make all decisions by ourselves. And we need big data because we need every bit of the world we know to feed the AI. So AI would be able to operate the world as smoothly as possible, and also to maintain it similar to the physical world. And from that point, blockchain is very necessary because we need the digital world to be stable and constant. And as we know from the previous lectures, the first thing about the blockchain is that it assures of very powerful cybersecurity. And also it assures the, basically records all the changes of the data in the network. So it can assure that constancy. And of course, because the process in the virtual world is much faster in the real world, using the physical currency is there's much of a limitation in the process of digital interaction. Like for example, think about it, like you have done all the world's works with like China or Korea on the internet, and you have to send money, but if you're sending in cash, then it will take much more amount of time to send it. And also we need to work on like changing the currency and other things. However, we have a mediating currency between for all the process that will save us a lot of time and also save us a lot of work. So yeah, that's why AI, big data, blockchain, cryptocurrency are just necessary as this hyper-connected society becomes to develop even further. Right, so next thing. So how does it work? How does all this technology work? So it works on based on how susceptible and deceivable our perception is. And you guys, I guess you guys already know how easy to deceive your brain. You had your like experiences with the 3D glasses or or like what else? Like those magic eyes things which we did as a child, or that little sausage trick when you put our fingers between our eyes and just look at elsewhere. So how our eyes, well, visual perception is the most important thing because basically that's how we process like the majority of the information. So our eyes perceive the world by seeing a slightly different picture, and our visual cortex calculate the difference between the two pictures on each eye, and from the difference we calculate the sense of depth and distance. Like for example, if you blink eyes, like one eye and another eye, you'll see that the scene slightly changes. And you know that if you have one eye blinded, then you lose seriously the sense of depth, distance, and well, just the sense of the three-dimensionality, right? So by using that trick, we can just scan for example, the surroundings, and place it on our lenses or the projectors, as you see on the pictures on the right. So our eyes will be deceived that we are seeing the slightly different pictures, and thus, even though it's not real, but we sense the depth, the distance, and the three-dimensionality. That's basically how all the 3D those images work. Same goes to the motor sensory perception and other sensory stimulations, because it just depends on how the stimulation is interpreted in electric signals in our brain. So if we just have like stimulation that is quite similar to the real world, then brain will automatically calculate it and just perceive it as the real world stimulation. That's how the haptic suits like this Tesla suit or the motion platform that allows you to move in the virtual platform and sense those motion stimulations work. However, we're still standing in the same place.
Wait, so so this is more than just the 3D goggle, the VR goggles, right? This is like you actually not just seeing with your eyes, but you're feeling with your body too.
Yeah, that's I forgot the slide, but there's two types of VR. So one is a 4-point and two is a 6-point. 4-point VR is when you can just watch the surroundings. You cannot interact with it. So like VR goggles are the 4-point VR. And 6-point VR is when you can move when you can move around in the platform. Like in the video that we have just watched, remember the whole room covered in green for the 3D rendering, and the lady was allowed to move freely in that environment, right? That's 6-point VR.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So everyone's good? Cool. I'll move to the next slide. So then what about the other senses like olfactory, gustatory, or hearing, or any other things, auditory? So there is a thing called this EEG. I guess some of you guys have heard it, or some of you guys have done it. So basically we're installing the electrodes to the brain, sending the electric signals to observe the brain activity and also give some kind of stimulation. That's first used for firstly for the medical reasons, right? To check if there is some tumor in the brain, or if everything's okay with the brain, or to study how the brain reacts to particular stimulation. However, as you can give the stimulation brain and deceive it to having the stimulation. For example, if you put that electrode in your brain and send a certain signal, then even though you're not having something in your mouth, you might be able to sense like a taste of coconut in your mouth. That's how easy to deceive the brain. So we can apply the technology, and it's already being researched, well, as you see here, by MIT in 2017. So maybe we'll have that fully immersive VR pretty soon. Of course, it will like cost thousands of millions of dollars, but maybe we can have a completely virtual world that where you can sense everything as same as in the real world. Okay, so how then, like, how is it applied? First of all, application would be the education, right? That, as I have mentioned in the first place, like those virtual laboratories where students would be able to conduct any kinds of chemical experiments without the consequences of blowing up the school. That would be pretty awesome for the students just to have a like interest and just researching the chemistry or the physics or any other science stuff. And also the like for the history, for example. Like there's this app called Civilization with AR. So you can like tap it. Shoot, it's come on. Yeah. And you can like bring out the historical artifacts, study from different angles. So such kind of new ways of delivering the knowledge allows students to get involved much quicker, much deeper than traditional means of education. And also the entertainment, that's like one of the most leading industries in this technology. We have that famous Pokemon Go, and also like this kind of VR games that you can basically be a Jedi. And also the famous applications are like architecture, building a 3D model of the building or the interiors that you want to, and making the swift changes right into the model without wasting time for making changes into 2D blueprint and then building another model for it and so on. And especially the medicine that I really go crazy for. Like it's already well known that there are medical students who practice their surgery using the simulation, VR simulation, without, well, killing the patients. And also, for example, American military has been using VR technology already for like 2-3 years to help the soldiers who suffer from PTSD. So basically, there's using the VR devices, they're sent to the like. Well, it sounds a little illogical, but they are presented environments that cause them to have the PTSD in a virtual environment, and they just repeat what they have experienced and analyze their emotions at the same time, and thus finding the key to fight their problems. And such similar strategies apply to those who have like phobia, like claustrophobia or anacrophobia or any other things. Just simulating the environment that you're feared about, but knowing that you don't have the consequences, really release that person and builds that momentum to recover from the damage. But the most important thing perhaps is that this platform allows to have a comprehensive communication. It allows to build and provide the platform that you want to live in and share it with others. Like, perfect example is Pokemon Go. Like, think about it. Like, Pokemon Go is secretly teaching Americans the metric system. That was super awesome. Like, you know how much revenue was used by the U.S. government to teach the metric system, but they failed. So they spent around like $5 billion to apply the metric system in America, but they failed. But as Pokemon Go only provides the metric system, and people want to play it, so they just had to learn how much miles in a kilometer. And also, as they're going out with their devices with the same intention as you live in the platform of Pokemon Go, you can make new friends. Or, for example, this Donutply and NYC had a really smart strategy with that Pokemon craze, because they found that their store was a gym, was the Pokemon gym that you can have a battle with other players and achieve some like bonus points. So as they found out that people are coming to their store just to fight for the gym, so they began to use it as their marketing point. So by mixing, one word, by adding the digital incentives to the real world, you can make more opportunities for business or for education or for just communication more profound than traditional means. Just think about the ways of like relaying the knowledge. For now, traditional education systems are relaying the knowledge in a limited way, right? Like in words, or in verbal ways, oral ways, or like if it's like a dance or like a martial arts, then by motor, by just repeating what your teacher is showing to you. But think about like this kind of system. For example, you're teaching kids the book of Exodus, and you give them a VR goggle, and as kids put the VR goggles, the Egypt of the time of Moses is just in front of their eyes, and they can follow Moses by his footsteps, like as like one of the Israelites that are escaping from Egypt. That will be completely another experience of teaching history that traditionally was not available. So that understanding how to communicate through the platform, not only using one mean like verbal or motor or a visual, but in a comprehensive way that combines everything in one, is pretty awesome. But of course, current technology has limitation. For example, have you guys like tried the VR goggles for more than 15 minutes? You really get a kind of sickness, like car sick. And also, as they had to like stay still on your head, they're pretty heavy and they're suffocating. Like 15 minutes with the VR goggle, you'll be like sweating like hell. Also with the haptic suits on it, and it's basically sauna. They're really not comfortable to wear and use right now. Also, but there are a lot of safety issues with current technology because, for example, think about it. You're in the VR suit, VR goggles in a VR studio. So your perception is completely blocked from the real world. And suddenly there's a fire in the building. You don't know that fire is happening because your perception is blocked by VR. That's a big safety issue. So, like, it's currently under like debate. Like, should we allow the complete blockage of the real world perception, or should we allow only to some degrees? Or, well, I guess you guys are understanding what I'm talking about. And the third thing is that the biggest hindrance for current development of technology is that there's no standard platform. For example, when it comes to web or internet or any programs, then we have standard platforms for working, right? Like Windows or Mac, and then if it goes to language, like C++, Java, or Android, iOS, and so on. But there's no single platform that is used by like the majority of the VR developers right now. It doesn't mean it's irrelevant from the fact that like big companies like Facebook or Microsoft are investing. The point is that they have to provide a platform that is comfortable for the developers to use and also for the consumers. There's no such platform right now. And if such platform will be developed, then all the developers will be concentrating their ability on the platform. So it's quite irrelevant from the fact of how much investment is going on right now. And the biggest point is that if you don't have the quality content for that platform, there's no marketability. For example, again, the Pokemon Go. Like, we had the technology about like 3, 4, 5 years ago. We had the technology to be implemented, and there were some pilot programs using the AR technology for games similar to Pokemon Go, but none of them lasted more than 1 year because, well, it wasn't Pokemon. But why people play Pokemon Go is that they're familiar with that content, and also the concept of the Pokemon is really suitable to the AR. Like, if you guys watch that anime, then you know that it's like about exploring the world and catching Pokemons and making new friends, right? And the same concept is applied to the game. And as people play for the nostalgia, they just have to apply the technology. So if there is no match between the right technology and the right content, then no matter how good your technology is, there's no marketability. That's the biggest limitation.
But hey, I have a question.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to be some sort of entertainment content, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
we don't have to use VR to play games and watch stuff. Like you said, there are other applications that's more practical.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be like, because what I'm sensing here is it's all about the content, but it's not really just about the content, right?
Actually, I would say it's actually more all about the content. For example, you have, for example, the application with the medicine here. This is HTC Vive that is used mostly for gaming, but also this technology is meaningful because it has the content of simulating the surgery. Same thing, and this device that you're using for the cure of the PTSD is same thing. So you just have like an instrument, but if you don't have the ways to use an instrument, that instrument is meaningless. It's not just about gaming, but for example, that example with the history lesson. If you have that fully immersive history course about like time traveling, then you would like to buy that device. But if you just have the device without any content, then you just don't have a reason to buy one.
Maybe if there's another Steve Jobs of VR or AR, I guess that can be solved. Because I think like when smartphones were first available, I don't think we had like Instagram or like amazing apps that we use now. But I guess like it depends on many other factors. The content is definitely
that goes.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, that goes to the point that mentioned the third. No standard platform for the development. iPhone was successful because it's not only easy to use for consumers, but also easy to develop the new apps for the developers. So as that platform had guaranteed clientele, also guaranteed ability, the attractiveness to the developers, that could be successful. Providing the playground for the developers to make and test their new apps, for the current VR market, AR, VR, MR market, we don't have the platform. Of course, Facebook is making a tremendous investment in it, and also Microsoft is, but that platform is not that welcomed by the developers.
Why?
So if you can develop one, that would be awesome.
But it
Right.
does seem like there's some small like applications already taking place. Like I know like
Oh yeah, it is.
the recent like you going back to the whole with Apple, like I do like on the I don't know if it's the recent phone that came out with the 11 Pro. I know that there's a function where like IKEA, like if you wanted to buy things on IKEA, you can, instead of actually buying the product, like measurements and everything, all you need to do is just like, it's like VR. I guess no, it wouldn't be VR. This would be AR.
AR. Yep.
AR, right? So you would just take
I
your
deleted that.
your room,
Yeah.
right? So that,
Yeah,
so I guess in that sense, I guess the limitation is there needs to be some sort of, I guess the platform in some ways is just companies are just using it in the form of just apps then for now then, right? Is that what's happening as of right now when it comes to AR and VR?
Yeah, so when I mean about the platform, it's about more of an operating system currently. So as we know, so IKEA system, IKEA app is built on the like Unity OS as much as I remember. And Unity OS is used also for the apps, variety of apps for games, for social media, and so on. So content and platform must go together. In what way? Platform must provide the comfort for the developers to develop. And also it has to be compatible with all the devices that support the platform. Content should be attractive to the consumers, but also easy to access for the developers. So if one of that thing is absent, then that technology cannot like go big as Apple.
Yeah, to that point.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, so like I guess if we really want to start talking about like phones too, right? So Apple's licensing for programming is proprietary. You have to pay for a license in order to code and create certain apps, and then with that platform, it gives you the tools to be able to develop in the iOS world. Android is different, right? Like Android is an open source code that's been provided by Google, but you have companies like HTC, LG, Samsung, all these different manufacturers that use that open source code, but then add their additional spin to Android. And so because they add their own spin to it, it's not standardized. Whereas Apple, because it's proprietary and is controlled, it's that's what Chanyoung is saying, is it's very easy to make sure that everything works consistently across the Apple world. And so like that's the key difference, even though Google's open source, it's kind of like all these other VR goggles, VR things coming out, because there's no like standardization. It can't grow as fast as what Apple did.
Yeah, but we already know that it's like already destined for this technology to grow even further. Sooner or later, we're going to have that devices that are constantly connected to those kind of technology and available to the wider public, like the smartphone. That's obvious, right? So, thinking about the future that will strike us, the key questions that I really want to discuss you guys is how to adjust to that gap between the real world and the real world. As VR and AR becomes more similar to the real world, as we travel in between those two worlds, we need to have the anchor to like adjust that the difference and also maintain ourselves. And how can that comes to the second question: how can we distinguish the real reality and myself between the virtual reality and myself? And that's the thing that we have to teach the kids, because, like, for example, there was one thing at the bookstore I saw. Like, there was a kid, like 3 years old, 4 years old, I don't know, but the kid was reading some kind of book, and I guess he wanted to see the picture closer. So what he was doing is that he grabbed onto the book. So he grabbed onto the book like this and doing this. Because kids cannot distinguish the difference between the books and the smartphones, they're just used to that gesture and thinking that that gesture will increase the picture. And that so those kind of phenomena will happen in the age of VR. Kids that are very used to VR situation, VR platforms, come back to the real world and try to do the exact things that they did in the VR world. But we know that VR is built to please somebody. VR is built according to what we want, but the real world is not. So, as a conclusion, I don't think that it's all bad thing. Like that's the point I failed to deliver in the last lecture. But everyone will see the world differently with the VR in AR, and everyone will be able to share how they see the world. That's a great thing. And think about it. We as Christians are already used to it. We see and we live in the world differently from others. And we try to share the ways of living that we are living in. But it will be just more closer to the skin to witness that differences between the worlds we live in with the assistance of the VR. So, in overall, as this is the last lecture of the second module, I just wanted to share you guys the forum that I had while preparing this. The first is Ecclesiastes 1:9-10, that there is nothing new under the sun. You must not be deceived or perplexed by those shiny signs that is like new, life-changing, innovative, or groundbreaking or something. Because as the God is the sole creator of the time, space, and the physical laws of the universe, nothing can happen beyond God's will. Know that for sure. And secondly, everything is under the gospel, even the works of Satan. You know that from the book of Job. So my prayer topic while preparing this talk and for the remnants that who want to use the technologies, that be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. Snakes are shrewd in that way that they are very flexible. They can adjust to any kind of geographical situation, and they can go to the places that other animals cannot. They utilize their full potential, and also they utilize all of the aspects of the environment. And doves are innocent and pure in that way that they always come back to the beginning point. They always come back, return to their home, which is gospel for us. So yeah, that's my prayer topic. That's my prayer topic for all of you, and that's the end of the talk today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are you open to questions? Yeah. You take over.
Yeah, sure.
No, go ahead.
I think we should do questions first. That's a good idea.
Maybe I have like it's less of a question more than a concern that maybe is worth discussing. So I just want to point out that the VR and all these virtual content or all these application that you can do, I think it's really, really important and dangerous. Like, you know, the PTSD treatment, it's good, right? Because it's actually making a false reality to cure someone. I think it's put a lot of risk. It's not necessarily bad, but there are a lot of risk to younger generation, like kids, because as you're growing up, sometimes, you know, you have the deja vu and all that stuff. Like, you remember something, but it didn't actually happen. And I think if they grow up using this technology and they're really so used to like the fake reality, it imprints in their memory, and as they grow up and then they think back, they cannot recall whether or not that actually happened, and it really just messes up your memory, and it's really just dangerous. Like, this is the imprint part I want to talk about. Like, you can't distinguish like all your life experience. Like, if I play a VR game for like 2 hours, then I can really just say those 2 hours are fake. But if you grow up using that, then at a point you're not gonna remember how many hours of that are fake. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think about like the ethic parts of that is being shaped right now?
That's a really a huge great part. For example, not only about the kids, but let's talk about that lady we saw in the video in the beginning. We cannot blame her for wanting to see her dead child, right? Well, if somebody wants to see the video, I'll share you the full link. But she was able to return back to her normal life because she had other kids to take care of. But I sometimes think that what if that child was her only child and she just decides to stay in the reality. But the thing is that it's really hard to blame her for abandoning one reality for another, because they deal with the questions that we think of as important. And those questions will just keep emerging as the VR and AR goes popular. As you have said, there will be more people who are not able to distinguish their real self and the virtual self. So I tried to find the materials on how to train to sense your reality, but there is none, because that's the question we never thought about. Even that's a really topical, traditional philosophical questions. Like, think about it. Like, in the Eastern philosophy, there is a Lao Tzu thinking about that dream when he became a butterfly, and waking up and saying, "Am I a butterfly dreaming of being human, or am I a human being a butterfly?" Or the movie Matrix. Are you living in the real world or the virtual world? Or like, there's another Descartes, cogito ergo sum, like, I exist because I live, because I think, but nobody can guarantee that you're living the reality. For example, we might be just the brains in a jar, electronically stimulated by the mad scientists. Nobody knows. That's the question that has been haunting the humanity for centuries, and nobody has found the answer. You just know that its importance will just grow bigger and bigger.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Xiao on how it's problematic. Like, even the name says it, like mixed reality, virtual reality. It sounds like, in another word, like fake reality. So people are bound to be confused. Yeah. But I think it's just going to happen. You know, like
It
they're
is.
going to use the worldviews of Genesis 3, 6, and 11, like especially with human rights. How about the one mother who lost her, child? Like, isn't she poor? Like, should we help her somehow? Or like people with like PTSD, like shouldn't we help them to recover? So like to me, like it's going to happen, and I guess like as a Christian, like how can we use this in a way that is helpful? And when I asked the question, I was inspired by this praise team. Um, it's my favorite praise team called JUS, like JUS.
GS.
What they do is they upload YouTube videos of VR videos on YouTube of their praise concert. So people who weren't able to attend the concert can actually feel the vibe like 360 degrees. They can praise in virtual reality. So maybe like at RCAs or any of the events that we do, like America is a really, really big country. Like not like Korea where everyone can attend like when there's a training or anything like that, or like praise nights. So maybe in America, one way to utilize it is um, have those things like you mentioned about the contents, like the importance of contents. Like we need more YouTubers or like people who are in the media team of RCA praise. We can have this like VR content where people who can't attend the Remnant Praise Night can really feel the vibe and praise God together, like with all five senses. As the technology gets developed, things like that, I think that we can think about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. For this year, our WRC is canceled, and we're having a town conference, right? But wouldn't it be awesome if we had some VR headsets or something to gather at the same place, at least virtually? That would be pretty awesome. So it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, it's useful but dangerous.
Yeah, can I just say something for just because this is kind of like a reality for me in the sense that this is going to happen, and like I'm getting so many phone calls about Mr. Lee, my son or my daughter is addicted to YouTube and I don't know what to do. And honestly, I do agree. I think this is our reality for us. And the thing that really does bother me is that because especially kids, they just take in everything. So that's the thing. Like multiple reality to me is that's a very scary thing. And especially with kids that are I think it's a lot to take in. And because their minds are so sensitive, for them, it's like addiction. Like it's an ongoing thing for me. Like literally had a meeting last week with a parent and he doesn't know what to do. And I think a lot of people are just trying, like a lot of things that people even the guidance counselor, she's having a tough time. And I'm noticing like the patterns of what she's saying is just make some adjustments. Just go ahead and, limit that by giving, set the hours. But the reality is that I think if we look at it more deeper, there's definitely a lot of things that like imprint to me, like going back with what Xiao said as well. Is like, I totally agree with that because it is so like my number one concern is once school starts is when these kids that have been on their devices their whole time, like they're not going to be the same. They're just going to like, concentration is going to be the worst. Behavior is going to be like off the charts. And so what am I supposed to do? Put them on like VR sets? I'm like, okay, we got to fix you now. Like what do I do? Like, just the idea of that. It's just, but it's true. Like, I think that it's something that I'm like, I am scared. Like this is just a scary thing to see. Like these kids that literally their life right now is YouTube, and had it like, if right now we had VR sets, then if everything was all set, I don't know. But all I know is that like I'm already feeling it. Like the concentration's not there. I know my kids, like, when I teach on Zoom, they don't care. I have to really, like, every lesson is like trying to sell it. But anyway, but yeah, double-edged sword. Although I say double-edged sword, I'm for now gonna lean on the side where it's like, I don't know, I see a lot of
Drawbacks.
negative, I will say. But that's just my opinion. That's just coming from a teacher. Like, I did the reading, and the reading that I found interesting was for the ASD, autism spectrum, like, you know, with like ASD kids. I do see the benefits of that because, you know, for them, they're all about like tactile. And there was a part when I was doing the reading, I'm like, yeah, I can definitely see that. Like, for them to use VR as a way for them to understand like mind-body connections and like seeing objects. Like, I think that in that way, I was like, oh, I never thought of that. So that was quite interesting. But I'm just a concerned teacher, man. So I don't know. So
It is.
On that point,
Yeah.
I'm a concerned parent. Like, for me,
Yes.
I'd probably just disallow this technology altogether in my household. I think the points that were raised by the other participants around imprints, I think that's the key, right? Because the question I kept asking myself as I was listening to this is but what is the core reason why somebody would use this? What is a core application by which somebody would want to leverage this technology? And just kind of listening to the discussion, I've kind of separated it, or the way I've organized it is into two different spheres. It seems like one sphere is the sphere of using the technology to get something done or to help somebody else. So, like the example of a surgeon in New York City that's operating on somebody in a rural village in Africa. Person can't fly there, but maybe through this they can provide some type of treatment. That seems like really interesting, and it seems like a practical application of technology, maybe even in some education situations. But the most of the ways that Channing has highlighted, kind of like the way the technology is being used today, it's really about like healing. It's really about individuals, whether it's trying to get entertainment or whether it's the lady whose child died. It's about trying to find a source of healing in something in this world, and this is a technology that makes it much more real, and it enables that. And like I'm a bit old school, and I love to just read stuff and digest it and think about it. But like, there's a reason why we have communion. There's a reason why we have the five senses. I remember reading this book by C.S. Lewis. He said one of the reasons why Christ gave the disciples the communion, the bread and the wine, was because he wanted to give them something, a physical manifestation of this, like this spiritual reality. So he was basically giving them this bread and this wine. He was saying this represents these things, and behind it was this deep spiritual reality of this covenant that was being established. And so, like, the use of physical things to relay spiritual truths and who God is, I'm all for that. But to use this technology, even in the form of PTSD, and this is coming from a former military veteran, yeah, look, it might provide temporary satisfaction or comfort, but is it really the thing that will provide that true healing? And I don't think so. And for all the issues that Sam and David highlighted around addiction, just being in a different reality, like as Chanyeong mentioned, I think it's very, very dangerous, I would say. The one thing that I would say is I feel like this is the one technology, and tell me if I'm wrong, Chanyeong, but I feel like this is the one technology where we as individuals don't have to have it pushed upon us. So, for example, like the data piece, it's everywhere. No matter what we do, what we interact with, it's there. The blockchain crypto stuff, it was anonymously developed and basically propagated throughout the world. But like I feel like this, because it will always require me to make the conscious decision of putting this thing on my face. Maybe I can fight back against this, but I don't know. Will there ever come a time where I feel this utter need to leverage this technology because there's some spiritual malady within me that requires me to use it?
I feel like they will. I feel like they will have like sometime later that some schools started to teach the student using VR and have everyone just hop on this and use it as a mean for education. Started to require people to adopt the devices. I feel like that might happen. Getting pushed upon us.
I think that David will be sensing this on the level of his skins, because basically building VR platform it's the extension of the privatization of the data. VR world is the world consists of the data that you like, that you want. That's basically what Netflix, YouTube, and other Instagram or any other things are doing it, but it just goes another level to present us in a more immersive way. And the world that VR world will be developing in the way that more satisfies us, with the things that we like, the things that we prefer to have rather than in the real world. So we have heard about that danger from the previous lectures, and it just goes intensifying.
Yeah, one thing to add to, what triggered me is when I saw that totem in that presentation, and I recognize that because Inception.
Yeah.
And the way that I can see this type of technology expanding is literally allowing for people to tap into some type of alternate reality, as you would in Inception. People can actually do it now. That Inception movie is really based off of something called lucid dreaming, where in your dream you have the ability to create your own world and manipulate your own world. So like the concept of Inception is very real to something that people in this world today do, called lucid dreaming. Imagine if you can use that technology to allow just common folks, people who don't practice lucid dreaming, to then start creating their own worlds and living inside, quote unquote acting as God. I think something like that may be far more addicting than any drugs and anything that people get hooked onto, because I think one of the reasons why even kids play games or do drugs in the first place is they want to escape their current reality, whatever their situation they're going through, the darkness that they're going through. I mean, I can testify and say that I've gone through the same things when I was growing up and going through a lot of problems. There always seemed to be like this empty hole that I tried to fill in with physical things. And I see that this augmented or this reality changing technology is also going to be the same, to where potentially it could become so addictive that it might start to get regulated. Like governments might try to start controlling it and limiting the amount and access to it. Because I think it can be definitely more addictive than heroin even.
So speaking about the addiction, so there is a study about like the gaming addiction. Okay, so the researchers of the certain Korean university were observing 40 families with kids with a gaming addiction problem, and also 40 families of European families and so on. And what they found is that kids whose parents are ignoring their individuality, pushing themselves to have the things that they don't want to, and also showing that the parents are not stable, have a higher risk of becoming game addicts In other words, as you have said, because they want to escape from the hardships they're facing in the real world, they escape to the alternate reality. So I believe actually that's the point that we must teach our kids and also ourselves, like to withhold that unwanted stimulation, to be able to withstand to the hardships that we feel in the world.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, I think no matter if I was able to play as God in this, dream, like lucid dream, stating, like the environment, and even throughout all the different types of addictions I went through growing up, I never felt the peace or that feeling of that hole that I had inside me until I received the gospel. And so I think that could be the same, right? But I don't think it's just something that we can force upon anyone else or control. I think really it is just through the grace of God. And what we can do is continue to hold on to that and be an example and be a witness and share our experiences and create that fellowship with those that are in trouble and going through hardship. I think in the chat, Jahi. Oh, Jahi, do you want to say something?
I can't find the raise hand thing. So yeah, I just wanted to share, similar to what Eddie said, and also what other people said about the imprint. So we just had a summit mentorship worship, and during that, Pastor Yu gave a message, and 3 things to imprint to the summit remnants. One is imprint the power of God, the spiritual power of God, and imprint that, and also imprint the character of a spiritual commander. And number 3 is imprint the summit and that deliver that truth. So those are the 3 things to deliver to the mentors and mentees, and 3 things to imprint. And it's like last week I watched a movie called Jesus. It was like a musical played at the theater in Pennsylvania, and I received a lot of grace. It was visually, they did such a good job visually putting that together. And not only that, I think I received grace and spiritual strength because their script is basically Bible. Their script is, not just a little bit here and there, human conversation, but mostly majority of them were Bible scriptures. So anything in terms of anything, if it could be used to tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads, write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates, I think as long as the words could be the word itself could be imprinted in the remnants, I think it'll be a good use. But if something else gets inside of them before the words, then it'll cause trouble. It'll cause more spiritual problems if it's not the word that goes into the remnants first. And also we have Nari joining us, and she works at a company called Magic Leap, and they make the mixed reality wearable computers. Nari, do you want to say hi?
Hi everyone. Let me start video quickly. Hi everyone. I see some people.
Hello.
I met before. Hi, Gitai. I think I saw the Chanyong before too. DK and Ed. Yes, I work at like augmented reality. We call spatial computing company called Magic Leap. So we develop wearable computer, like spatial wearable computer. Like we think it as a next generation computing. But there are a lot of work to be done, and I think Chanyong covered very well in VR area, and it was great to hear that from very fresh perspective. So I was in the industry, and then someone, I don't know if Chanyoung is working in that industry. Are you working in the tech industry or AR VR now?
No, I work in the gaming industry, and I just had some like experience with the motion captures, and that's all.
Oh, okay.
Not much of an experience.
But it was good to hear from different perspective. Yeah, and then I saw the email from the YBOM New York, and I kind of quietly admiring you guys getting together every like Saturday and sharing this like studying fourth evolution, industry evolution, and plus other core message activities. So since the topic was augmented reality and virtual reality, so I just joined just to hear what you guys think. So yeah, nice to meet you guys, and thanks for inviting for random people.
Are there increased demands for AR, VR machines these days?
Oh, are you asking a question?
Yeah.
Oh, there are a lot of, there are demands. People see the problem, like to visualize like equipment and products and physical objects into the digital 3D. So a lot of augmented reality is happening right now through a mobile platform, like a mobile, like smartphone and iPad. So like Chanya mentioned, like Pokemon is a great example. So through a lot of AR application is used on mobile phone, and mainly starting from gaming. So Pokemon Go is a good one, and the very simple one like Snapchat. So if you can see the Snapchat, then you can change your face and everything. That's also augmented reality, like very simple one. So the main adoption right now is based on mobile phone and iPad, especially the Apple recently announced the Apple iPad with a LiDAR sensor. So LiDAR, so that's a laser scanner sensor that is used for autonomous driving. So which means if you have that sensor, you can map like your physical world in a pretty accurate scale and accurate way. So that will like enhance augmented reality experience. So I see that those iPad with a LiDAR can be used for business side for augmented reality. But the challenge is you have to hold the iPad and mobile device, right? It's not hands-free. So because of that, there are a lot of players that are developing wearable computer so that you can use your hands. Some players like Oculus or even our product, we have a controller as well to have a more accurate or less energy intensive control. If you gesture, you feel like it'll be cool, but if you try like 10 minutes like this and that, then your arm will be very tired. So there's a lot of different approach to solve that issue as well. And then we see that a lot of demand from business, especially like engineers and designers, they're using 3D CAD software. I don't know if any of you are working in the automotive industry as an example. So or architecture, engineering, construction industry. So they are using like a lot of 3D CAD softwares from Autodesk or Dassault Systems. So they're already creating like building using 3D CAD program, or like creating design the car using 3D program. But they're looking at just 2D monitor, right? So, but if you look at, and then they create the mock-up, you have the physical object. For example, like car, if you design the car, and the next step is you have to print the car in using 3D printer, or you have to make a clay model. I don't know if you saw those clay model of the car. So that clay model like costs $300,000, and it'll take 1 month, more than a month, to ship it to your design house. So it takes cost, it takes time. So it'll reduce, if you can just visualize in a very realistic way at the real like one-on-one scale, then that'll cost time and the money a lot for the manufacturers. So a lot of manufacturing companies are interested in those kind of use cases, and also helping a lot of maintenance use cases. A lot of like field technicians, they don't know everything how to fix it, so they can wear glasses, and then they can get the contextual information, like step-by-step instructions, or how to fix the car, or how to fix all those machines, like complex machines, so they can get those help through the glasses. So that will reduce error rate from the human, and then a lot of cost as well. There are more cases, but I will end there. Any question?
Hey, Nari, quick question. I'm looking at your guys' enterprise solutions, and it looks like there's something called Rumi, which is virtual staging for real estate. And I could see how that would be much more like acceptable, just given the whole like coronavirus scare, and folks don't want to like go to showings and open houses, and there's a ton of products here.
Right.
Do you think what's going on with the whole like COVID disaster, will that accelerate the adoption of number one, your products, but just kind of this technology much more generally?
We as a company, we see that. We want to make that happen, right? We want to make those virtual visualization will be more happening because of this COVID-19 like work from home type of era. So we leverage this opportunity. So we recently launched the collaboration application. So you can actually, with a company called Spatial, so that's another software company, the spatial collaboration software company. So they're using HoloLens, they're using Magic Leap, but what they're doing is you can literally virtually, I don't know if you guys saw the Kingsman. The vision is like creating those Kingsman like conference experience, right? But what we launched with the Spatial is you can join as a physical like avatar. So they scan your face through phone. It's not that realistic, but it's kind of close to how you look. So you can create your own avatar using scanning by phone, I think. And then you can physically be in the meeting room, and then you can do the whiteboarding. So you can use the whiteboard, and then you can share the videos and screens in a more like a realistic way, as if you are physically present together with other people. So that's the one application we kind of promoted, leveraging this opportunity. But yeah, I think so, because of this COVID-19, people feel more cautious to get together more. So for somehow we need to create the new norm of like having meeting virtually like this. And hopefully physically like emulating actual physical meeting, like you guys mentioned that like RCA or WRC in the VR. That'll be awesome. But motion sickness and everything, I'm not sure if people can see more than 1 hour. That's another question. But yeah, technology will be evolved, and then I think that will happen at some point.
I have a question. First of all, thank you for joining. I'm familiar with your company. I used to work in Wall Street Journal, and I know we have a partnership with you guys on the virtual news thing. Yeah, and I just thought it was really cool. And I see you guys are also partnered with HBO too. I'm not quite sure. I'm working for them now, and it's just like a lot of maybe are you guys like making games based on like our like show content? That I'm not sure. My question is, so you guys have the hardware, and the software is basically the apps. is it like like what Sam said? Is it like open for everyone, or is it like if we want to make some application, we have to like make that partnership with you guys? Like, what's the?
Yeah, it is the. So you're asking our platform is more.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, what's the structure of like getting onto the device or?
Yeah, so it is any third-party developers can develop application. So we are like an Apple. We are like a smartphone app ecosystem. So any developers can develop the application. They can upload on our app store type of, we call Magic Leap World, but there's like a basically app store. So you can upload those apps and then you can monetize it from that. So Unity, if developer can use Unity on Unreal game engine, so they can develop using that toolkit, or we provide our own SDK, Lumin SDK, or you can use like a web browser, like a WebXL. So you can use web-based augmented reality experience. So Amazon Sumerian, they're providing web-based XR experience. So you can use that kind of tool, or you can use your own custom engine. So we support that too. So we try to enable any developers who want to develop this kind of experience. So those are the main platforms we support.
That's very cool to know because, ultimately we want to make good content. I think this is another pipeline that we can go into. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, nowadays Unity is the main platform. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. It looks like 5 minutes. It's gonna be finished. So
thank you so much for thank you very much. If there's one last question, I think we'll take one last question. If not, thank you very much for Chanyoung and Nari as coming as a guest lecturer. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Chanyoung.
Thank you very much for thank you
so much.
Lecture and then so next week we have a remnant day, so we will resume this lecture starting the week after, and it will be economic impact. On the syllabus it says social, but we'll start with economic, and the course reader that you should read is from 191, like page 191 to the end. I think Chehi and Gloria will send out an announcement on the chat. If you're not part of it, please let us know. And thank you very much. Enjoy today, and see most of you at the YBOM intensive training.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Nice meeting you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.